Yeah, thank you. I think it's necessary but insufficient. I think that in order to create the systems change, we need evidence that there's a credible alternative, and I think B corporations provide that credible alternative in the marketplace. Because you can't just say the system needs to be changed and the system is broken, but not have something to point people to. Otherwise, that just elicits more fear and anger and frustration. And so B corporations doing the really difficult work on the ground is incredibly important. But one of the most important things B corporations can do and have done for the last 13 years is to actually work together to create that kind of systems change. And so by working together, we've collaborated to pass laws in over 40 jurisdictions around the world to create a new kind of company that operates by different rules. And so when Greta says we can't save the world by playing by the rules because the rules need to change, that's exactly the standpoint that the B corporations take, which is why we're actually changing the rules, not just living by them for ourselves, but creating the opportunity for others to create new rules for the corporation, which require the corporation to consider the impact of its decisions on all stakeholders and to create value for all stakeholders, not just shareholders. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, systems change can sound pretty abstract. And another way to think of it is just the rules, right? So you sit down to play a board game or you're getting on the pitch to play a match and you're playing by certain rules and there's certain lines that you're supposed to play within. And right now the lines have been set up that we're supposed to play by a certain set of rules that says we're supposed to show up every day and put all of our values aside and just focus on maximizing profit and just accumulating more and being more and more comfortable and more convenient. And while comfort and convenience and profit are wonderful things, they need to operate within certain guardrails. And those guardrails are we have to protect the natural world and the natural systems on which all of life depends. And we have to make sure that those economic systems serve social systems, serve communities, so that we can live lives that are full of dignity and purpose. Because ultimately we're pretty social creatures. And we're interdependent upon each other, and so we want the systems to reflect that. And so the systems have to be changed so that we can be accountable to create value for all, not just for some. Yeah, that's a great question. So it is a really important cultural milestone that the Business Roundtable CEOs committed to lead for the benefit of all stakeholders. And the most important thing is how do we help them translate those words into action? One of the most important things we can do for them, I'd say there's two things. The first thing is in terms of concrete business practices, we can engage them in using their businesses to contribute to the SDGs. And so in early January, in partnership with the UN Global Compact, B Lab and the global B Corp community are launching the SDG Business Action Manager to help companies contribute to SDG 13 on climate action, or whatever the SDG is that's most close to their business model. How do we help them take concrete action to use business as a force for good to contribute to the SDGs? The second thing though is because we're not going to be able to do that with as much power as we want if the overriding system in which those decisions are being made actually doesn't value those kinds of business actions, which is why the second thing I would work on with the CEOs of the Business Roundtable is to work with the B Corp community to engage the capital markets to create corporate governance structures that change the fiduciary duties of corporate directors to be accountable to create value for all stakeholders, not just shareholders, just like they say they'd like to do. Because it's one thing to say you'd like to do it, but if your directors say their actual fiduciary duty is to do something else, and if the investors are only valuing something else, then we have a bit of a misalignment and a conflict. And so we want to work with those CEOs to engage policymakers and to engage capital markets to make sure that our governance structures reflect the intentions of our corporate leaders. I think one of the biggest challenges for the B Corp movement is going to be able to scale with integrity. Certainly after the Business Roundtable announcement, we're receiving a flood of interest from large multinationals, and we need to be ready to receive that energy, but not have our boat capsized by the weight of the energy coming to us from those large companies. And so we have to make sure that they're coming to us and we're not rushing towards them. They're coming to us because there's credibility and authenticity in the B Corp movement, and we want to preserve those standards. So when companies want to be affiliated, no matter how big, they want to be affiliated with the power of the B Corp movement, that they're moving in this direction and meeting real rigorous standards of performance, transparency, and the legal accountability to balance purpose and